Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed that the harder you chase something, the more it seems to slip through your fingers, whether it's love, success, validation, or peace? The moment you start grasping, you begin losing. It's as if the universe has a quiet rule. What you chase runs, but what you embody arrives. And so I ask you, what would happen if you stopped chasing? Yes, if you ceased the endless pursuit of people, outcomes, and approval, not out of bitterness, but out of deep, sacred realization that you are enough now, here, and whole. Because the moment your energy no longer seeks, the world starts seeking you. This is not magic. It is alignment. And this is why you must stay with me until the end. Because your life is waiting for this shift, not out there, but in here. Chasing implies lack. Attracting implies wholeness. This single insight holds the key to shifting the entire way you move through life. When you chase, you do so from a place of inner scarcity, a belief that something essential is missing within you. You run after validation, affection, opportunities, or success because you feel incomplete without them. The very act of chasing is fueled by an assumption that you are not already enough, that fulfillment lies somewhere beyond the present moment. And so, your energy is poured into a desperate effort to acquire what you believe will finally make you feel whole. But what if this belief is the illusion that's keeping you trapped? Chasing never really works, not in any lasting or meaningful way. You might get temporary wins, small rewards that soothe the ego, but underneath it all, there's a gnawing emptiness. Why? Because the pursuit itself reinforces your sense of deficiency. Every time you reach out from a place of lack, you're silently affirming to yourself and to the world, I am not complete without this. In contrast, attraction comes from wholeness. Attraction doesn't beg, grasp, or force. It radiates. It draws in experiences, people, and outcomes that match your internal frequency. There's no hunger in attraction, only gravity, the quiet pull of someone who has become enough unto themselves. When you are rooted in your own presence, aligned with your values, and no longer seeking outside permission to feel worthy, life begins to organize itself around you. You no longer chase love because you have become love. You no longer run after success because your internal success is so complete, it begins to magnetize external rewards without effort or strain. To live from attraction instead of chasing, you must first shift your focus inward. Instead of asking, what can I get from the world, you begin to ask, who am I being in this moment? You recognize that the external world is a mirror, reflecting back your dominant energy. If you operate from fear, you attract people and situations that confirm your fear. If you radiate peace, you find yourself in harmony with peaceful outcomes. Most people misunderstand this. They think attraction is manipulation, a way to trick life into giving them what they want by saying the right affirmations or playing hard to get. But real attraction has nothing to do with appearances. It is the natural consequence of inner alignment. When your mind is quiet, your heart is open, and your spirit is undisturbed by the chaos around you, you begin to draw in what truly belongs to you, not because you chased it, but because you matched its essence. Think of nature. The sun doesn't chase the planets, yet they revolve around it. Flowers don't chase bees, yet they come drawn to their fragrance and color. The ocean doesn't chase rivers, yet all waters return to it. This is the wisdom of attraction. Stillness, authenticity, and presence hold more power than any form of pursuit. Even in relationships, this dynamic is clear. When you chase someone to love you, they may give you attention, but often it is laced with conditions, power struggles, and insecurity. But when you are at peace with yourself, when you love yourself enough not to settle, you stop accepting crumbs. You become selective, not out of arrogance, but out of self-awareness. And ironically, this very energy draws in those who are capable of seeing you clearly and loving you wholly. The same applies to goals and dreams. When you are obsessed with chasing success, you often act out of desperation. You force, push, and strive in ways that burn you out. But when your identity is no longer attached to an outcome, you move with calm determination. You no longer need success to prove your worth. Your actions become an expression of your worth, not a substitute for it. And in that mindset, success comes not because you pursued it blindly, but because you attracted it with clarity, discipline, and confidence. Chasing is an energy of fear. Attraction is the energy of trust. When you trust who you are, where you're going, and the timing of life, you release the need to chase anything. You start becoming the kind of person who naturally draws in exactly what aligns with your spirit. And so the invitation is simple. Stop running. Start aligning. Stop grasping. Start becoming. The shift from chasing to attracting is not external. It is deeply internal. It's the difference between fearfully asking life to give you something and calmly allowing life to deliver what was always yours. When you stop running after people or outcomes, you invite alignment. There is a subtle yet profound transformation that occurs the moment you stop reaching outward for things to complete you. The act of running, whether it's toward a relationship, a goal, recognition, or validation, creates a vibration of disharmony. It's like telling the universe, I am not enough as I am, and I need this external thing to fix me. That signal carries weight, and life responds accordingly. But the moment you stop running, when you pause, breathe, and become still, something shifts. You begin to reclaim your energy from all the places you've scattered it. You gather your attention from the endless chasing and bring it back home to yourself. This is the birthplace of alignment. Because alignment is not about effort. It's about clarity. It's not about trying to force pieces into place. It's about becoming so internally congruent that the external world begins to reflect your inner peace. When you chase after people, you often lower your boundaries. You bend, twist, and shrink to be accepted. But love that requires you to abandon yourself is not love. It's attachment in disguise. True connection cannot be chased. It arises naturally when you are standing firmly in who you are, without performing for affection or begging for attention. When you stop chasing, you stop attracting those who are only interested in your weakness and start aligning with those who honor your wholeness. The same truth applies to goals. There is a difference between disciplined effort and anxious pursuit. The former is rooted in purpose and intention, while the latter is rooted in desperation and fear. When you run after success, you may move fast, but you often lose yourself in the process. You become consumed by the illusion that achievement will finally make you feel worthy, but it never does. You get the promotion, the applause, the check mark, and still feel empty. Why? Because you were never aligned with the journey, only obsessed with the result. Alignment means you are no longer moving from lack. You are no longer sacrificing your peace for progress. You are no longer chasing something you think you need in order to be happy. Instead, you begin to act from a space of inner truth, clarity, and purpose. You walk, not run. You create from joy, not panic. You relate from love, not fear. And that is the space where life begins to flow. When you're aligned, decisions become easier. You don't feel pulled in 100 directions trying to prove something to the world. You know what resonates and what doesn't. You stop forcing relationships, forcing timelines, forcing outcomes. You trust, not blindly, but wisely. You trust because you've come to understand that the things meant for you will never require you to betray yourself to have them. Alignment is not passive. It requires inner work, learning to sit with discomfort, to face your fears, to release patterns of codependency, and to embrace your worth regardless of what others think. But once you commit to this path, the reward is profound. You become magnetic to the people, opportunities, and circumstances that truly reflect your authentic self. Stopping the chase doesn't mean giving up. It means surrendering the illusion that you are unworthy without external affirmation. It means learning to trust that you don't have to fight for what is already aligned with your soul. When you stop chasing, you stop blocking the flow of what is naturally coming your way. You make space for clarity, for grace, for miracles. The next time you catch yourself running after someone's love, after a status symbol, after a goal that feels heavy and forced, pause. Ask yourself, am I chasing because I lack, or am I creating from alignment? That question alone can shift your entire reality. Because the truth is, you were never meant to beg for what already belongs to you. You were meant to become it and allow it to arrive in its perfect time. In the stillness that follows the chase, life speaks. It whispers through intuition, through synchronicity, through moments of grace you could never plan. That is the power of alignment. And it begins the moment you stop running and start listening. Stillness creates clarity, and clarity draws what is meant for you. In a world obsessed with speed, noise, and urgency, stillness is often misunderstood. We equate movement with progress and busyness with purpose, but the truth is many people are just spinning in circles, chasing illusions. When you're constantly in motion, mentally, emotionally, and physically, you lose sight of yourself. You become entangled in distractions, obligations, and desires that don't truly belong to you. It is in stillness, not in striving, that you begin to see clearly. Stillness is not the absence of action. It is the presence of awareness. It is the inner pause where the noise fades and the truth begins to rise. When you sit in stillness long enough, the fog of anxiety, fear, and doubt begins to lift. You start to hear the quiet voice underneath the chaos, the one that always knew what was right for you but was drowned out by the shouting of the world. This is clarity. Clarity is not something you chase. It's something you uncover. It is already within you, hidden beneath layers of conditioning and fear. Stillness is how you access it. When you stop running toward what others think you should want, you begin to ask yourself, what do I actually desire? What resonates with my soul? This is where transformation begins. Not by adding more to your life, but by stripping away what isn't true. And here's the paradox. Once you are clear, you don't need to go after things with the same desperate energy. You become the kind of person who naturally aligns with what is meant for you. The right people, the right paths, the right opportunities, they start to appear, not because you chased them, but because your inner world became a match for them. That's the magnetic power of clarity. Think of a lake. When the water is stirred, you cannot see your reflection. But when it becomes still, it reflects everything with perfect precision. Your mind works the same way. A restless, chasing mind is clouded and reactive. It moves based on fear and impatience. But a still mind is sharp, calm, and discerning. It sees what is essential and disregards the rest. It knows when to act and when to wait. It no longer confuses movement with progress. It moves with purpose. In stillness, you become a better listener. You begin to recognize the difference between ego and intuition. Ego wants what looks good. Intuition wants what feels right. Ego rushes. Intuition waits. Ego is loud and urgent. Intuition is soft and steady. Stillness helps you tell them apart. And in that space of knowing, you start making decisions that bring peace, not chaos. This is how you draw what is meant for you, not by manipulating or husking or convincing the world to give you something, but by embodying the energy of someone who is already enough. You start to trust that you don't have to force anything. What is truly for you will recognize you, not because you chased it, but because you became it. And so clarity becomes a filter. You stop entertaining relationships that drain you. You stop investing time into things that don't align with your values. You stop saying yes when your body says no. You begin to protect your energy, not from a place of fear, but from wisdom. You finally realize that you do not need more, only more awareness of what actually matters. The more you return to stillness, the more magnetic you become. You don't have to chase love, you are love. You don't have to beg for opportunity, you are prepared when it arrives. You don't have to scream to be seen. Your presence speaks louder than your words. The world feels your clarity, and it responds in kind. Take the time to be still. Step away from the noise. Let the dust settle. Stop searching for answers outside of yourself. Everything you are seeking is already inside of you, waiting for the silence to speak. And when it does, you will not need to chase anything, because you'll finally understand that what is meant for you will arrive not in your rush, but in your calm. Detachment is not indifference. It's inner sovereignty. Many people misunderstand what it means to let go. They think detachment means becoming cold, emotionless, or disconnected from the world around them. But in truth, detachment is not about rejecting life. It's about reclaiming yourself. It's about no longer allowing your peace, your self-worth, and your energy to be dictated by forces outside of your control. When you are truly detached, you are not passive or careless. You care deeply, but you are no longer controlled by outcomes. You still love, still dream, still strive, but you stop attaching your identity to how things unfold. You show up fully, but you do not beg for certainty. You recognize that your value is not determined by whether someone stays or leaves, whether a plan succeeds or fails, whether life goes as expected or falls apart. This is not indifference. This is power. This is inner sovereignty. The state of being where nothing owns you but you. So much of our suffering comes not from what happens, but from our attachment to how we think things should happen. We cling to people, roles, timelines, and expectations, hoping they'll fill a void within us. But attachment always demands something in return. It says, I will feel whole if this works out, or I will be happy when this person loves me back. Detachment, on the other hand, says, I am already whole, no matter what comes or goes. That shift changes everything. When you detach, you are no longer reactive. You stop trying to control every variable because you trust your own resilience. You stop chasing closure from others because you've found it within. You stop fearing endings because you understand that every ending is simply a redirection. Detachment frees you from the emotional roller coaster of needing everything to go your way. And in that freedom you become unshakable. In relationships, detachment allows you to love without losing yourself. You don't need to be constantly reassured or validated because you are rooted in your own worth. You can give without demanding. You can receive without guilt. You can walk away if necessary, not out of bitterness, but out of respect for your own peace. You no longer stay in spaces where you are only tolerated, because you now understand the difference between connection and dependence. Attachment doesn't kill intimacy, it deepens it. It removes the fear, the pressure, the clinging, and allows love to flow more freely. In your goals and pursuits, detachment keeps you centered. You still work hard, still aim high, but you don't tie your happiness to the outcome. You trust the process. You understand that your effort matters, but the outcome is not always yours to control. This gives you a calm focus, a sustainable drive. You move with intention, but without desperation. You no longer collapse if things don't happen on your timeline. You remain steady, grounded in the knowing that what's meant for you cannot miss you, and what misses you was never meant to stay. Detachment does not mean you stop feeling. On the contrary, it means you feel fully, without letting those feelings hijack your truth. You can grieve and still trust. You can be disappointed and still move forward. You can care deeply and still let go. This emotional maturity is the foundation of inner sovereignty. It means you are no longer a prisoner of outcomes. You no longer live in fear of loss because you are no longer dependent on anything outside yourself to feel complete. When you practice detachment, you begin to notice how many things you once clung to out of habit, fear, or conditioning. And as you let them go, not in anger, but in awareness, you create space. Space for peace. Space for clarity. Space for things to come into your life freely, without manipulation or force. You stop chasing because you trust that what belongs to you will never require you to abandon yourself, to keep it. Detachment is not giving up. It is choosing to rise above the chaos of control and live from a place of truth. It is the realization that your worth is non-negotiable, your peace is sacred, and your time is too valuable to waste chasing anything that diminishes your spirit. In that space you become a master of yourself, and that mastery is what draws the right people, the right paths, and the right purpose directly to you. You become magnetic when you need nothing to validate your worth. At the core of human struggle is the subtle but constant craving to be seen, approved of, and accepted. We search for compliments to feel beautiful, achievements to feel accomplished, and relationships to feel loved. But beneath all that striving lies a fragile foundation, one that says, I am not enough unless someone or something outside of me says I am. And as long as your sense of worth is dependent on the external world, you will always feel unsettled, always chasing, always afraid of losing what temporarily makes you feel significant. But something powerful happens when you no longer need validation to feel whole. When you stop seeking approval to feel like you matter, you begin to move differently. You speak with more confidence, not because you're trying to impress, but because you're not afraid to be misunderstood. You make decisions more freely, not based on what others might think, but based on what resonates with your soul. And in that energetic shift, you become magnetic. Magnetism isn't about beauty, charm, or status. It's about energy. It's about presence. People are drawn to those who carry themselves with a quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't shout for attention but commands it effortlessly. This kind of energy cannot be faked. It comes from within. It comes from doing the inner work of knowing yourself, accepting your flaws, embracing your uniqueness, and realizing that nothing outside of you can define your value. When you are rooted in your worth, you no longer move through life trying to impress people. You no longer shapeshift to be liked or water yourself down to fit in. You're no longer afraid to walk away from places or people where you are not seen clearly. And ironically, that self-containment, your refusal to need, is what draws others to you. The less you need from others, the more freely you can connect with them. Not from a place of lack, but from overflow. This is where your magnetism lies, in your freedom. When you're no longer emotionally dependent on praise or attention, you can offer love without expectation. You can listen without needing to be heard in return. You can give without feeling depleted because you're giving from abundance, not scarcity. You become safe to be around, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Think of how people respond to someone who is genuinely at peace with themselves. You feel it. There's no anxiety in their presence, no competition, no hidden agenda. They're not trying to prove anything. And that makes others feel safe to be authentic too. That is rare, that is powerful, and that is magnetic. On the flip side, when you are always trying to get something from others, validation, attention, acceptance, people feel it. Even if you don't say it out loud, your energy reveals it, and that energy repels rather than attracts. Because nobody wants to feel like they're being used as a mirror to prop up someone else's self-worth. This doesn't mean you become closed off or self-centered. It means you build your house on solid ground. You create an inner space where you know who you are, your values, your voice, your vision. You validate yourself through integrity, not applause. You affirm your worth through how you treat yourself, not how the world reacts to you. And when you live from that space, the people and opportunities meant for you are drawn in like iron to a magnet, not because you chase them, but because your wholeness created a gravitational pull. This is the paradox of self-worth. When you no longer seek external validation, you often receive more of it, naturally, effortlessly. But by then, you don't need it to feel complete. It becomes a reflection of your light, not the source of it. If you want to become magnetic, stop asking the world to tell you who you are. Start becoming the kind of person who knows their value so deeply that whether someone applauds or ignores you, you remain centered. Let your worth be non-negotiable. Let your presence be your statement. Because when you truly need nothing to validate your existence, everything starts to respond to your presence. Not because you begged for it, but because you finally become a clear, powerful reflection of your truest self. Energy flows where attention goes. Stop feeding what drains you. Scheme of simple it does. Any perspective is the question, where is it animates your focus, your energy, and ultimately your life? Heavenward. Adessia. Energy, unlike time, is what animates your thoughts, emotions, actions, and absence. When you continuously direct that energy toward things, people, or habits that deplete you, you unintentionally create a life of exhaustion, confusion, and disconnection. from your true self. Most people don't realize how much power they are leaking every day. They obsess over the opinions of people who don't genuinely care for them. They revisit conversations in their minds that already ended. They invest energy in proving themselves, in seeking revenge, in complaining about what they cannot change. And all of this comes at a cost. Every moment spent feeding what drains you is a moment stolen from what could actually nourish and elevate you. Everything that fails had already drained you, which will never bring you another moment's rest. And every moment spent feeding what drains you is a moment stolen from what could actually nourish and elevate you. Your attention is like sunlight. Whatever you shine it on will grow. If you shine it on fear, fear multiplies. If you shine it on doubt, doubt deepens. If you give your attention to petty arguments, to toxic relationships, to unworthy battles, they gain more weight and space in your life, and yet, when you begin to consciously redirect your focus toward what uplifts you, your growth, your peace, your purpose, your entire experience begins to shift. Not because the world changed, but because your focus did. You don't have to fight everything that drains you. Some things simply need to be starved of your energy. Not every insult needs a response. Not every door needs to be reopened. Not every call to chaos requires your presence. Sometimes the most powerful move is silence. Sometimes the most profound act of self-respect is turning your focus inward and withdrawing from the noise. We live in a world that rewards reactivity, that tells you if you're not engaging, you're falling behind. But that's a trap. Constant reaction is not power. Constant engagement is not mastery. Real strength is found in restraint, in discernment, in knowing what is and is not worthy of your energy. You can feel it. You know what drains you. That one person who always brings drama. That habit that leaves you feeling hollow. That thought loop that keeps replaying old pain. You don't need permission to stop feeding those things. You need awareness. You need the courage to let go of what no longer serves your higher self. Even if it once felt familiar, even if part of you is afraid to live without it. Reclaiming your energy starts with choosing where you place your attention. It's not about perfection, it's about direction. Every day, you get to choose what you nurture and what you neglect. Will you nurture peace or conflict? Will you nurture purpose or distraction? Will you nurture gratitude or resentment? These small choices build the architecture of your life. When you stop feeding what drains you, you begin to heal. Your mind becomes clearer, your emotions become steadier, your soul feels lighter. You're no longer living in reaction to the world, but in response to your own inner compass. You become less interested in proving and more devoted to becoming. You stop chasing things that leave you empty and start cultivating things that fill you with life. And here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you start protecting your energy, the right things start flowing toward you, because now your presence carries clarity. You're no longer leaking energy everywhere. You're channeling it with intention. You show up differently. More grounded, more focused, more at peace. And people, opportunities, and experiences that match that energy begin to appear. Pay attention to what you're paying attention to. You are always planting seeds with your focus. What you feed grows. What you neglect withers. And your energy, that sacred current within you, will either build your future or be consumed by distractions, depending on where you let it flow. Choose wisely, because your life is simply a reflection of what you've chosen to energize. Life meets you at your level of self-respect. This truth is subtle, yet it shapes the entire quality of your existence. Everything you allow, everything you attract, everything you tolerate or reject, it all reflects how deeply you value yourself. Your relationships, your environment, your boundaries, your standards, they are mirrors of your internal beliefs about your worth. When your self-respect is high, life adjusts. When it's low, life continues to reflect that, often in painful and disappointing ways. Most people want better love, better opportunities, better peace, but they often overlook the root. What have you decided you deserve? Because life doesn't give you what you wish for, it gives you what you settle for. And what you settle for is directly tied to how much or how little you respect yourself. If you constantly say yes to things that diminish your spirit, if you keep allowing behavior that disrespects your time, your energy, your heart, then you are signaling to the world that this is acceptable, that you don't yet see yourself as someone worthy of more. Self-respect is not loud. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't demand others to treat you a certain way. It simply requires it through the quiet strength of your presence and choices. People who respect themselves don't argue about their worth. They don't stay where they are not valued. They don't chase anyone to be loved. They walk in alignment with their truth. And life naturally begins to reflect that alignment. But how does this play out in everyday life? It shows up in how you speak to yourself when no one is listening. Do you uplift or diminish yourself with your thoughts? It shows up in the choices you make when you're alone, the kind of food you eat, the way you take care of your body, your time, your mind. It shows up in how quickly you walk away from situations that insult your soul versus how long you stay, hoping something will change. Your level of self-respect sets the standard for how others treat you. If you always bend your boundaries to keep the peace, you teach people that your limits are negotiable. If you constantly give without receiving, you teach people that your needs don't matter. If you shrink to fit into small spaces just to be accepted, you show the world you don't believe you belong in anything bigger. Life watches. People notice. And the treatment you receive is often a reflection of the treatment you accept. But there's hope, because self-respect is not something you're born with, it's something you build. It starts with small but powerful acts. Saying no when something doesn't feel right, even if it disappoints others. Speaking your truth, even if your voice shakes. Letting go of what no longer aligns with your values, even when it hurts. These choices teach your nervous system and the world around you that you matter. The moment you begin to respect yourself, the energy around you shifts. People feel it. You attract those who match your frequency, those who recognize your boundaries, appreciate your presence, and do not play games with your time. Opportunities flow more easily because you stop entertaining anything beneath your potential. And most importantly, you begin to feel peace, the deep, grounding kind that doesn't come from being liked or validated, but from knowing that you are living in integrity with yourself. Self-respect also protects you. It keeps you from overgiving, over-explaining, overcompensating. It guards your energy from being drained by people who only take. It shields your heart from being handed to those who haven't earned access to it. It reminds you that you are not here to beg for anything, not love, not attention, not purpose. You are here to embody your worth and allow life to meet you at that level. If you want life to change, start here. Raise the bar within. Refuse to negotiate with your peace. Walk away from anything that makes you forget your value. Choose people and experiences that nourish your soul, not just your ego. And watch as life begins to rise to meet you. Not because the world changed, but because you finally did. When you are no longer at war within, the world stops resisting you. Most of us are taught to believe that life is something we must conquer, something that must be fought, earned, or won. But this belief often begins with a deeper, more hidden conflict, the war within ourselves. It's the internal struggle between who we are and who we think we should be, between what we feel and what we allow ourselves to express, between our truths and the expectations we carry. This inner conflict is exhausting. It's the reason so many people feel stuck, anxious, and disconnected, even when their outer lives seem successful. Because no matter how much you achieve, if you're at war inside, fighting your own worth, questioning your every move, doubting your voice, the world outside will mirror that chaos. Life responds to your internal state. If you are constantly resisting yourself, life will feel like a constant resistance in return. When you're divided internally, you start attracting conflict externally. You'll notice it in your relationships, constant miscommunication, drama, emotional distance. You'll feel it in your goals, delays, obstacles, frustration. It's not that life is punishing you, it's that your energy is conflicted. You say you want peace, but you hold on to anger. You say you want love, but you don't believe you're worthy of it. You say you want success, but you sabotage your own progress. These contradictions create friction, and that friction spills into the world around you. But what happens when you stop fighting yourself? Everything softens. You begin to feel a quiet sense of alignment, where your thoughts, words, and actions no longer contradict each other. You begin to trust your own decisions, even if others don't understand them. You begin to speak with clarity, act with confidence, and rest without guilt. The tension is within your body starts to dissolve. Your nervous system stops living in defense mode. Your relationships become less about winning and more about understanding. Your work feels less like survival and more like expression. In essence, life stops feeling like a battlefield and begins to feel like a dance. Inner peace doesn't mean that everything is perfect. It means that you are no longer torn apart by your own doubt, fear, or shame. It means you've made peace with your past, accepted the present, and trust the future. You're no longer running from parts of yourself. You're no longer trying to prove or perform. You begin to live from a place of wholeness, and that wholeness radiates outward. You'll notice that the world around you responds differently when you're at peace within. People treat you with more respect because you carry yourself with self-respect. Opportunities come more naturally because you no longer block them with fear or self-sabotage. You stop attracting chaos because your inner frequency no longer matches it. Even challenges feel more manageable because you face them with steadiness, not panic. It's important to understand that the world isn't against you. It simply reflects your relationship with yourself. If you are your own harshest critic, life will echo that voice. If you deny your needs, life will send people who do the same. If you constantly judge yourself, you'll find yourself surrounded by judgment. But if you begin to offer yourself compassion, grace, and patience, you will begin to see those same energies reflected back to you. Ending the war within is not a single act, it's a daily practice. It's the choice to pause instead of react, to forgive yourself instead of replaying shame, to listen to your intuition instead of silencing it with logic and fear. It's the slow, deliberate work of returning to yourself again and again until peace is no longer a fleeting moment, but your natural state of being. You don't need to force the world to accept you when you have already accepted yourself. You don't need to control everything when you trust your ability to navigate anything. And you don't need to fear rejection when you no longer reject yourself. If the world feels heavy, difficult, or unkind, turn inward, not outward. Look for the battle within and begin to lay down your arms. Offer yourself the kindness you keep seeking from others. Offer yourself the safety you crave from the world. When you do, something powerful happens. The world begins to reflect back your inner peace, because the outer resistance was never about the world. It was always about your own. The truth becomes undeniable. The life you seek isn't hiding in the chase. It's waiting in your stillness, your clarity, your alignment. When you stop running, stop grasping, stop needing the world to tell you who you are, you begin to return to the quiet power that's always been within you. No longer desperate for attention, you become radiant. No longer begging for love, you become love. No longer chasing success, you begin to embody it. This is not about doing more, it's about becoming more aware. Aware of how you spend your energy. Aware of what you feed with your attention. Aware of the war within and the deep peace available once you lay down your armor. The shift is subtle but revolutionary. Stop chasing and start becoming. Because when you finally remember your worth, your value, your inner peace, you'll see that what you once chased now moves toward you effortlessly. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it.